It began like any ordinary day at the airport until one sound changed everything. The entire airport froze when a police dog started barking uncontrollably at a little girl. Panic rippled through the crowd. The officer holding the leash shouted, struggling to control his canine partner, while the terrified little girl clutched her pink backpack, trembling, tears streaming down her cheek. She whispered, "It's just my school bag. I don't understand. I haven't done anything wrong. Please make him stop. He's scaring me." The little girl cried. But the German Shepherd wouldn't stop. His instincts screamed danger. At first, officers thought it was a mistake. How could a little girl be a threat? No one could understand why the canine was so desperate. His handler, Officer Mark Jensen, had seen Rex alert to danger before, but never like this. Something was wrong, people whispered. Why was a trained police dog targeting an innocent child? No one knew that in that very moment, the dog wasn't just barking. He was warning officers. Everyone thought the dog had gone rogue until an X-ray scan revealed something no one could believe. What the canine dog was sensing wasn't ordinary, and just seconds later, the entire airport went silent. No one could understand what was happening. Was she in danger? Was it possible she was carrying something illegal? Stay with us. The story will leave you shocked. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The echo of rolling suitcases and airport announcements filled the air when a sharp, sudden bark shattered the routine. Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Near the security checkpoint, a powerful German Shepherd in a black police canine vest lunged forward, his deep growl reverberating through the terminal. Officer Mark Jensen gripped the leash tight, his boots scraping the polished floor as he fought to hold the dog back. "Rex, heel, heel!" Mark's voice cut through the noise, but the dog refused to obey. His teeth bared, his gaze locked on one person. A small, dark-haired girl standing near the line with a pink backpack clutched against her chest. She froze, eyes wide, trembling as the dog barked again, louder, more desperate this time. Passengers gasped. Some backed away. Others pulled out their phones to record. A nearby mother shielded her child, whispering, "Why is the dog attacking her?" Airport guards rushed closer, confusion spreading like wildfire. Mark's pulse hammered in his ears. Rex had never disobeyed him before. The canine had been trained for years to detect danger, explosives, narcotics, but he had never seen him react with such intensity. "Easy, boy. What's wrong?" Mark muttered, tugging the leash. But Rex dug his claws into the tile, refusing to retreat. The little girl's voice broke through the chaos. "Please make him stop!" she cried, her voice small and terrified. Her eyes glistened with tears as she hugged her backpack even tighter, like it was the only safe thing left in the world. A line of TSA officers moved in, forming a cautious circle around them. One officer whispered, "Sir, is your dog malfunctioning?" Mark shot him a glare. "Rex doesn't malfunction. If he's reacting, there's a reason." The German Shepherd's body trembled with tension. He barked once more, sharp and deliberate, and then started sniffing the air between the girl and her bag, pulling harder toward her side. "Everyone, back up!" Mark commanded. The terminal buzzed with alarm now. People whispering, phones flashing, officers shouting instructions. Somewhere in the crowd, a small boy began to cry. Mark's jaw clenched. His gut told him this wasn't aggression. It was warning. But warning of what? As Rex's barks grew faster and more frantic, Mark felt a chill crawl up his spine. The girl took a frightened step back, but Rex pulled harder, desperate, insistent, like he was trying to tell them something no human could yet understand. And in that single tense moment, Everyone realized something inside that little pink backpack had just changed everything. "Rex, stand down!" Mark's voice thundered across the terminal, but it was like shouting into the wind. The German Shepherd's body was locked, every muscle coiled like a drawn bowstring. He wasn't attacking, he was warning. His barks echoed off the tall glass walls, commanding the attention of everyone within earshot. Mark could feel the leash vibrating in his hands. Rex was stronger than usual, driven by something primal. The officer leaned back with all his weight, bracing his boots against the floor, but the canine lunged again, claws scraping, eyes burning with a strange urgency. "Get her out of the way," yelled one of the airport guards. "The dog's losing it." But Mark shook his head. "No, Rex doesn't lose control. He's trying to tell me something." His voice was low, calm, measured, even as adrenaline raced through his veins. The little dark-haired girl clutched her backpack, tears streaking her cheeks. "I didn't do anything," she cried. "Why is he barking at me?" Passengers huddled farther away, murmuring nervously. "Did she bring something? A weapon?" "No, she's just a kid." "Then why is the police dog going crazy?" The chorus of whispers fed the panic until the entire waiting area seemed to tremble with unease. Mark knelt down beside Rex, gripping his collar firmly. "Buddy," he whispered, "talk to me." "What is it?" Rex whined, then growled, pressing forward toward the girl again. His nose twitched, his body tense, as if every sense inside him screamed of danger. Two officers stepped forward. "Sir, we need to secure the situation." One reached for the girl. The moment his hand brushed her backpack, Rex lunged, stopping inches away but barking violently. The officer jumped back. "What the? He nearly bit me." Mark's eyes narrowed. "He's not after her," he muttered. "It's something she's carrying." The girl's sobs grew louder. "It's just my school things," she insisted. "My mom packed it." "Where's your mom now?" Mark asked gently. The girl sniffled. "She went to buy tickets. She said she'd come right back." Mark exchanged glances with the other officers. Something didn't feel right. Rex started pacing in circles, tail rigid, nose pressed to the ground like he was tracing an invisible trail. Mark tightened the leash, his instincts screaming that this was more than a false alarm. The terminal was silent now. Hundreds of eyes frozen on the scene. Then Rex suddenly stopped, lifted his head, and let out a deep, guttural growl that sent chills down Mark's spine. Whatever was happening, it was only the beginning. The little girl stood trembling in the middle of the terminal, her small hands gripping her pink backpack so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The noise around her had faded into a blur. All she could hear was the deep, relentless barking of the German Shepherd. The echo bounced off the glass walls, piercing straight through her chest. Tears welled in her bright brown eyes. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't do anything." Her lower lip quivered as she looked up at the towering officer, struggling to hold the dog. She didn't understand why this was happening. Just moments ago, she had been excited. Her mother told her they were flying somewhere new, somewhere safe, and now this. A few feet away, passengers murmured, some with pity, others with suspicion. Poor child. What's she hiding? Maybe it's a setup. Their voices mixed into a cloud of fear and judgment that made the girl feel smaller and smaller. Her backpack suddenly felt heavier. She looked down at it, confused. It was just the same one she always carried with her crayons, her storybook, her stuffed rabbit. Her mother had zipped it up this morning and said not to open it until they reached the plane. "Be a good girl," she had said with a smile. But that smile now haunted her thoughts. The dog barked again, louder this time, and she stumbled backward. "Please make him stop!" she cried out. A tear rolled down her cheek and splashed onto her jacket sleeve. Officer Mark stepped closer, lowering his tone. "Hey, sweetheart," he said gently, trying to calm her. "It's okay. We just need to make sure everything's safe. All right?" She nodded, barely able to speak. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. The dog's growl wasn't angry anymore. It sounded almost desperate. "I promise," she whispered, clutching her bag. "I didn't do anything bad." Rex's ears twitched, and for a moment the barking softened into a low whine. The little girl's eyes met his and frightened, but searching for understanding. And in that silent exchange between a terrified child and a determined police dog, Mark sensed something deeper, something that told him this wasn't fear versus threat. It was fear versus truth. The sharp crackle of a radio broke through the chaos. "Unit 7, we've got a situation at Gate 12. K-9 response in progress." Within seconds, uniformed security officers flooded the terminal, weaving through startled passengers. Their boots clattered against the polished floor, their eyes scanning the crowd as if expecting an immediate threat. "Everyone step back," shouted a tall officer, raising his hand. The crowd shuffled away in nervous silence, forming a wide circle around the scene. In the center stood Mark, gripping Rex's leash and the little dark-haired girl, frozen, clutching her backpack like a shield. Rex barked again, deep and forceful, his tail stiff, his ears sharp. The echo of his voice filled every corner of the terminal, drawing more curious eyes. Some passengers began filming, whispering theories that spread like wildfire. "Bomb threat. Drug mule. They're checking a kid." Mark's jaw tightened. He hated that word, kid. She wasn't a suspect. Not yet. She was scared and Rex wasn't attacking her, and he was alerting. But to everyone else, it looked like chaos. 2 TSA officers approached cautiously. "Sir, we need to restrain the dog," one of them said, his hand reaching for his tranquilizer gun. Mark's voice cut like steel. "Don't you dare." His tone was low but lethal. "Rex has been trained for years. If he's reacting, he's right." The officer hesitated, glancing at the trembling girl. "She's just a child, man." Mark didn't answer. He crouched beside Rex, placing a steady hand on his back. "Easy, boy. Show me what it is." Rex's body trembled, nose twitching as he sniffed the air again, then pulled toward the backpack. He barked sharply twice in the kind of alert bark Mark had heard hundreds of times during drug busts and bomb drills, but never like this. Never with this level of urgency. The female TSA officer leaned forward carefully. "Honey," she said to the girl, "can you please set your bag on the ground for us?" The little girl hesitated. "It's just my stuff," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. Mark softened his voice. "We know, but we just need to take a look, okay, for safety." After a long pause, the girl slowly knelt down and placed the backpack on the floor. The air seemed to freeze. Every eye in the terminal was locked on that small pink bag. Rex lowered his head, sniffed once, and growled deep in his throat, a sound that made even the toughest officers step back. Something wasn't right inside that bag, and Rex knew it. The terminal had gone completely silent. You could hear the hum of the ceiling lights, the faint rumble of a plane outside, and the steady, heavy breathing of the German shepherd standing over the little pink backpack. Rex's eyes were locked on it, unblinking, unrelenting, as if he could see something inside no one else could. Officer Mark Jensen crouched lower, his hand gripping Rex's harness. He could feel the dog's muscles trembling with tension. "What do you smell, boy?" he whispered under his breath. Rex responded with a low growl, his nose brushing the bag's fabric, tail stiff as iron. The other officers stood frozen, waiting. One finally spoke. "Sir, should we open it?" Mark didn't answer right away. Something about the bag felt off. It wasn't fear, it was instinct, the kind of feeling only years on the force could teach you. His eyes traced every detail. The zipper seams were slightly uneven, and there was a small tear near one corner, hastily stitched back together. A child's backpack shouldn't have that kind of repair. "Hold on," he said quietly. "No one touches it yet." He turned to the girl. "Sweetheart, is this your bag?" She nodded slowly, her voice barely audible. "Yes, my mom gave it to me this morning." "Did she say anything about it?" "She just said not to open it. She said it had a surprise for me when we get there." Mark's stomach twisted. He'd heard that tone before from innocent people unknowingly carrying something dangerous. He nodded toward the TSA officers. "We'll scan it first. No one touches the contents." As the portable scanner was rolled in, Rex started pacing in small, anxious circles, whining under his breath. He wasn't aggressive anymore. He was worried. Mark had seen that behavior once before, right before Rex detected a live device during a military drill years ago. "Mark," one officer whispered, glancing at the monitor. "You need to see this." Mark looked over, and his blood ran cold. The X-ray image flickered on the screen, revealing the backpack's contents. Amid crayons, papers, and a stuffed rabbit were metallic strips arranged in neat rows hidden beneath a false layer of fabric. "What is that?" one of the agents muttered. Mark didn't blink. His voice was calm, but firm. "It's not a toy, that's custom work. Hidden circuitry." Rex growled again, louder this time. His instincts were screaming, and for the first time, so were Mark's. Mark's pulse pounded in his ears as the X-ray image flickered again. The metallic outlines were too organized, too symmetrical to be random. Whatever was inside that backpack wasn't supposed to be there. "All right," he said quietly. Everyone stepped back. 2 TSA officers adjusted their gloves. One of them, a young man barely out of training, swallowed hard. "Sir, are we sure it's safe to open?" Mark glanced at Rex, who stood perfectly still now, eyes fixed on the bag. "If it wasn't," Mark said softly, "he wouldn't be this calm. But he's waiting for something, so let's move slow." The officer unzipped the top layer. Inside, at first glance, everything looked normal. A coloring book, a half-eaten chocolate bar, a crumpled drawing of a dog that looked suspiciously like Rex. The tension in the room loosened slightly. Then the officer reached deeper. His fingers brushed against something hard beneath the fabric. He paused. "Sir, there's a false bottom." Mark's breath caught. "Cut it open." The officer carefully slid a small blade through the lining and peeled it back. Beneath the pink fabric was a hidden compartment, perfectly stitched, almost invisible from the outside. Inside it, wrapped in layers of soft cloth, were several thin metallic chips, dozens of them, each no larger than a coin. The young officer frowned. "What are these batteries?" Mark took one, holding it under the scanner's portable light. The reflection shimmered strangely. "No," he murmured. "These are encrypted microchips, custom-made, not something a child would be carrying." Rex growled quietly again, tail flicking with agitation. His eyes darted from the chips to the girl. Mark noticed the shift. Rex wasn't accusing her. He was protecting her. The little girl began to cry softly. "Please, I didn't know. Mommy packed it for me." Mark's tone softened. "I believe you, sweetheart. But I need to find your mom." "Okay. Do you know where she is?" She sniffled and pointed weakly toward the departure gates. "She said she was going to get juice, but she hasn't come back." Mark's gut twisted. He looked at his team. "She didn't go for juice." The officers exchanged glances. The tension returned like a storm. Mark gently set the chip back into the bag and zipped it halfway closed. "We've got something bigger than we thought." he said quietly. Rex's ears perked up, alert again, eyes scanning the crowd. Somewhere in that sea of travelers, someone was watching. Just as the officers began sealing off the area, a frantic voice echoed through the terminal. "Aisha! Aisha, where are you?" Heads turned. A woman in her 30s came running toward the crowd, her hair slightly disheveled, her eyes wide with panic. She wore a long gray coat and clutched a boarding pass in one hand. "That's my daughter. Please don't hurt her." The little girl gasped, spinning around. "Mommy!" she cried, reaching out with trembling hands. Mark's eyes narrowed instantly. Something about the woman didn't sit right. Her panic looked real, but her movements too rehearsed, too sharp. She didn't even glance at the officers or the barking canine. She went straight for the bag. "Ma'am, stop right there," Mark ordered, stepping between her and the backpack. The woman froze, breathing hard. "What's going on? Why are you surrounding my daughter? She's just a child." Her voice quivered in the perfect tone of a worried parent, but her eyes flicked just for a second toward the half-zipped pink bag on the floor. Mark noticed. "Your daughter's fine," he said slowly. "We just have some questions about this bag. You packed it for her, right?" "Yes," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "It's just her toys." Rex growled again, low and warning. The woman's eyes darted toward the sound, and for the first time, fear flashed across her face, not of the dog, but of what he might reveal. "Sir," whispered one of the TSA officers, "look at her hands." Mark did. They were trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Her fingernails had faint traces of metallic residue, the same dull silver tone that matched the hidden chips. "Ma'am," Mark said quietly, "I'm going to need you to come with us." Her face went pale. "You can't do this. I know my rights." Rex barked, lunging forward, not to attack, but to block her path. The girl screamed, clutching Mark's arm. For a moment, everything froze. The officers, the crowd, the girl sobbing into Mark's sleeve, the woman's eyes wide with guilt. And then the truth began to crack through the facade, because when the woman finally spoke again, her voice trembled with something that wasn't fear. It was desperation. The heavy metal door clicked shut behind them, sealing out the noise of the terminal. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting a cold glow across the small security room. Inside, 2 chairs faced a metal table. The little girl sat in one, her legs dangling nervously, clutching her pink backpack. Across from her, the woman who claimed to be her mother sat stiff and pale, her eyes darting between the officers. Rex paced restlessly near the door, his nails tapping the floor. Every few seconds he stopped, sniffed the air, then growled softly like he knew something still wasn't right. Mark leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his eyes locked on the woman. "Ma'am," he began calmly, "we need you to explain what those microchips were doing in your daughter's bag." She shook her head quickly. I don't know. I bought the bag from a street vendor. Maybe he—" "Stop," Mark's tone hardened. "Don't lie to me." The woman froze. Her lower lip trembled, but she didn't speak. Meanwhile, the little girl looked between them, confused. "Mommy," she whispered. "What's happening?" The woman turned toward her, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's fixing it." But Rex growled again, louder this time, his hackles raised, tail stiff, his body angled protectively toward the child. Mark noticed it immediately. "Interesting," he muttered. "He's not protecting you, ma'am. He's protecting her from you." The woman's composure cracked. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "He's just a dog." "Yeah," Mark said quietly. "A dog who saved more lives than you can imagine." He nodded toward another officer who stepped forward with a tablet. "We checked the security footage," Mark continued. "You didn't buy that backpack from anyone. You handed it to her yourself just before you checked in." The color drained from the woman's face. "That's not true!" she shouted, standing abruptly. Rex barked sharp and warning, forcing her back into her seat. Mark's eyes never left hers. "You're done lying. We need to know who gave you those chips and what you were planning to do with them." The woman looked down, her shoulders shaking. "You don't understand," she whispered, tears forming. "If I talk, they'll kill me." Mark's voice softened slightly. "Then help us stop them." Rex sat beside the little girl, eyes still locked on the trembling woman, as if he already knew she was hiding more than she'd admitted. And deep down, Mark knew it too. The air in the security room felt heavier now, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The woman's hands trembled on the metal table, her knuckles white. Mark studied her carefully, the flicker of fear in her eyes, the way she avoided looking at her daughter, the faint metallic stains on her fingertips. He had seen that look before, the look of someone trapped between guilt and survival. "Talk to me," Mark said quietly. "What were those chips for?" The woman didn't answer. She pressed her lips together, shaking her head. "You wouldn't understand." Rex growled low, pacing in slow circles near her chair. His ears twitched every time she shifted, like he could sense the lies before she spoke them. Mark leaned forward. "Try me." Finally, the woman broke. "They said it was just electronics," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "They told me to hide them in my daughter's bag, that no one would ever suspect a child. I didn't want to, but I needed the money. My husband's gone and we're drowning in debt. They promised it was harmless." Mark's stomach sank. He had heard this story too many times. Ordinary people pulled into extraordinary crimes. "Who are they?" She hesitated, glancing at the one-way mirror behind him. "They're watching," she whispered. "They always watch." Rex let out a sharp bark, startling everyone in the room. He turned his head toward the door, ears pricked, nose flaring. Mark frowned. "What is it, boy?" A security officer rushed in out of breath. "Sir, we just checked the X-ray database. Those microchips aren't for electronics." Mark's pulse quickened. "Then what are they?" The officer swallowed hard. "Tracking and encryption units used to transfer untraceable data between black market servers. Whoever planted them was smuggling stolen identities." Mark turned back to the woman. "You were smuggling digital identities through airport security." Her tears flowed faster. "I didn't know what they were. They told me it was safe." "Who told you?" She hesitated, then whispered a name that made Mark's blood run cold. It was the same alias connected to a string of unsolved airport smuggling cases, stretching across 3 countries. Rex barked again, sharper this time, pulling towards the girl. Mark knelt beside the K9. "What is it, buddy?" Rex sniffed the child's jacket, then the side pocket of her backpack. Mark's eyes followed. "Wait a second." He carefully opened a small inner pouch. Hidden deep inside, taped to the lining, was one final microchip, larger than the rest, wrapped in foil. Mark lifted it into the light. "This one's different," he murmured. The officer scanned it quickly. The screen blinked, and a string of encrypted data appeared. Mark stared in disbelief. "These aren't just stolen identities," he said slowly. "This one holds airport access codes." Rex whined softly, lowering his head. The room fell silent. And in that silence, everyone realized this wasn't just smuggling. It was sabotage. The silence in the security room was deafening. The hum of the fluorescent light seemed louder now, every flicker echoing the tension that filled the space. The officer stood frozen, staring at the microchip glowing faintly under the scanner's light. Rex sat beside Mark, his head tilted slightly, ears twitching as if even he was waiting for an answer that no one could find. Mark turned toward the woman, Ward. These codes could have shut down airport systems. This isn't just smuggling, it's a coordinated breach. You need to start telling the truth. The woman buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I didn't know, I swear I didn't know what they were. But before Mark could respond, a small voice broke the silence. It wasn't Mommy, the little girl whispered. Every head turned. The child's voice trembled as she clutched her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide and glistening. It wasn't Mommy who gave me the shiny cards, she said softly. It was the lady on the airplane. Mark's heart stopped. What lady, sweetheart? She sat next to me when Mommy went to the bathroom. She said she was my mommy's friend and that she wanted to give me a surprise. The girl sniffled. She put something inside my backpack and said not to tell anyone. She said it was candy for later. Mark exchanged a look with the other officers. Did your mom see her? The woman shook her head, horrified. I didn't leave her side for more than a minute. But that's all it took, Mark muttered. He turned to the little girl kneeling so they were eye level. Can you remember what the lady looked like? The child hesitated, thinking. She had long black hair and red nails. She smelled like flowers and she wore a badge. Mark froze. A badge? The girl nodded. Like yours? She said she worked at the airport. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the realization hit all at once. The enemy wasn't outside the system. It was inside it. Rex growled softly, his gaze fixed on the window. His instincts were flaring again, sharper than ever. Mark followed his line of sight to the corridor outside the glass, where a woman with long black hair was watching them from afar. She turned and disappeared into the crowd before anyone could move. Lock it down, Mark barked, springing to his feet. She's here! Officers scrambled toward the exit, radios crackling, alarms beginning to sound. Rex lunged toward the door, barking furiously. His instincts once again leading the way. The little girl buried her face in her hands, trembling. She said she was nice, she sobbed. Mark's voice was steady, his heart pounding. No, sweetheart, she wasn't nice. He looked toward the hallway, eyes narrowing. She was the one we've been hunting all along. The shrill blare of the security alarm shattered the stillness of the room. Red lights flashed across the corridor, and the muffled sound of radios erupted all at once. Mark burst through the door with Rex by his side, their footsteps pounding against the tile. She's heading toward Gate 9, a voice shouted over the radio. Passengers screamed as the woman with long black hair sprinted through the terminal, weaving through crowds, her airport badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. She looked calm to the untrained eye, just another official responding to the chaos. But Rex wasn't fooled. He yanked at the leash, muscles flexing, his growls deep and guttural. Mark barely managed to keep up. Go, Rex Tracker. The K-9 surged forward, nose low to the ground, tail stiff as he followed the scent through the maze of luggage carts and security barriers. The trail was strong, perfume mixed with synthetic leather, leading straight toward the restricted maintenance corridor. Two officers intercepted the suspect, shouting for her to stop. She turned abruptly, tossing her badge into a trash bin, then slammed a fire door shut behind her. The alarm screamed even louder, locked down the east wing. Mark ordered, grabbing the radio. No one leaves until we have her in custody. Rex barked once and sharp, determined, then lunged forward, shoving the door open with his weight. The dim corridor beyond was empty, echoing only with the distant hum of machinery. She's trying to reach the service tunnel, Mark muttered, scanning the area. If she gets there, she'll vanish into the airport's cargo grid. They moved fast, Rex leading the way. His nose twitched, catching the faintest trace of movement. Then he stopped, ears perked, staring at a row of suitcases lined up near a service elevator. Mark's instincts fired. "She switched clothes," he said quietly. "She's in disguise." A figure stepped out from behind the elevator, wearing a cleaner uniform, head bowed beneath a cap. For a split second, the disguise worked until Rex barked, lunging forward. The woman froze. "Don't move!" Mark shouted, his weapon drawn. But before anyone could react, she tossed something to the ground, and a small black device, and a plume of smoke erupted, filling the narrow corridor. Officers coughed and stumbled, visibility vanishing in seconds. Through the haze, Rex charged forward, ignoring the smoke. His powerful bark echoed like thunder. A struggle ensued, more a thud, a scream, a clatter of metal. When the smoke cleared, Rex had pinned the woman to the floor, his jaws gripping the sleeve of her uniform. "Good boy," Mark panted, rushing to cuff her wrists. "You got her." As officers pulled her to her feet, her calm returned. She smirked. "You think it ends with me?" she said quietly. "You have no idea how deep this goes." Mark stared at her coldly. "We'll find out." Behind him, Rex stood tall, chest heaving, his eyes locked on her, as if daring her to make one wrong move. And in that moment, everyone knew it wasn't just a bust. It was the beginning of unraveling one of the most sophisticated airport scams in the world. The interrogation room was colder this time. The woman sat with her wrists cuffed to the metal table, her once sleek black hair now disheveled. Her expression, however, had changed. No fear, no panic, just a cold, unsettling calm. Mark stood across from her, arms folded while Rex rested by the door, eyes never leaving her. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound breaking the silence. "You've been busy," Mark said finally, tossing a file under the table. 6 airports, 3 countries. Every time, the same pattern. Data chips hidden in children's belongings, smuggled under security's nose. The woman smirked faintly. "You've done your homework." "Not all of it," Mark said, "because your badge wasn't fake. We traced it. It's registered to an employee at this very airport, one who supposedly died in a car crash 6 months ago." Her smirk faded. "So you found her?" "You are her," Mark replied. "Or at least the woman who took her identity." For the first time, the mask slipped. Her jaw tightened and she looked away. "You think you're saving people, officer," she murmured. "But you don't understand how this world works. You shut down one route, another opens. It's not about airports, and it's about control." Mark leaned forward, his tone low. "Then help me understand. Who's running it?" She looked up, her eyes glinting. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Rex growled softly, reading the tension like he could sense the deceit behind every word. Mark slammed his hand on the table. "Try me." The woman didn't flinch. "You're chasing ghosts," she said coldly. "I'm just one piece in a system bigger than any of us." Mark exhaled sharply, stepping back. "We'll see about that." He nodded toward another officer. "Check her phone records, bank logs, flight logs, everything. There's always a trail." As the officer stepped out, Mark turned back to her. "You used that little girl, an innocent child. You hid behind her fear. You could have killed her." Her expression softened for a brief moment. A flicker of regret, almost human. "I never meant to hurt her," she whispered. "She reminded me of my own daughter." Mark's face hardened. "You lost that right the second you chose this life." He turned toward the door, calling out, "We're done here." But as he walked away, the woman spoke one last time, and her voice chillingly calm. "She's not safe, you know. None of them are." Mark froze. "What do you mean?" The woman smiled faintly. "There are more bags already on other flights." Mark's heart pounded as the woman's final words echoed in his mind. "There are more bags already on other flights." He stormed out of the interrogation room, grabbing his radio. "All units, we have additional packages, possible explosive or data-carrying devices planted in outbound flights. Lock down every terminal now." "Copy that," voices replied, overlapping in panic. Sirens wailed again through the airport, red lights flashing overhead. Passengers screamed as officers scrambled to evacuate gates and search departing planes. Rex was already on alert, pacing, his sharp eyes darting between officers. Mark knelt beside him, gripping his collar. "You found the first one, buddy. I need you again. Find the others." Rex barked once, strong, certain. Then he lunged forward, nose pressed to the ground as he began sprinting through the terminal, weaving between scattered luggage and terrified passengers. "Make way!" Mark shouted, running behind him. "Police K-9 unit, stand clear!" Rex's movements were sharp, precise, purposeful. His training took over. Scent tracing, pattern recognition, sound filtering. The world to him was a map of invisible signals, and right now, one scent stood out above all, the same metallic tang he detected from the girl's backpack. He followed it down the corridor toward Gate 18. The flight to London was minutes from departure. "Stop that plane," Mark yelled into his radio. "Gate 18, hold boarding." Rex leapt onto the conveyor belt, sniffing the stream of luggage being loaded into the plane. He barked 3 times GIGO alert signal. Mark climbed up beside him, slicing open one of the tagged bags. Inside were identical microchips hidden under layers of fabric. "Found one," Mark called. "Disarm and sweep the rest." Rex didn't stop. He ran ahead toward another gate, ignoring the chaos. At Gate 22, he barked again, then growled low, pawing at a suitcase that had already cleared inspection. The handler opened it carefully, revealing a similar hidden compartment. Within minutes, officers had recovered 4 more bags, all marked with the same smuggler code. The crisis was over, but only because Rex had found what no machine could detect in time. As the sun began to rise over the runway, Mark knelt beside Rex, resting a hand on his head. "You did it again, partner," he whispered, his voice breaking. Rex panted softly, tail wagging, eyes calm now, his mission complete. Mark smiled faintly. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the best detective in the world doesn't wear a badge." And for the first time that night, the airport finally fell silent, saved by a hero with 4 paws and a heart that never doubted. The chaos had finally settled. The flashing lights dimmed. The sirens faded into the distance, and the last of the smuggled bags had been secured. The once panicked terminal was quiet again, filled now only with exhausted officers and the soft hum of the intercom. Mark sat on a bench near the security gate, Rex resting at his feet. The German shepherd's chest rose and fell slowly, his fur glistening under the fluorescent light. He had done his duty again. Across the room, the little dark-haired girl sat wrapped in a warm blanket, holding her stuffed rabbit. She looked small and lost, her eyes still swollen from crying. An officer offered her juice, but she barely touched it. She kept glancing toward the door, waiting for something. Mark walked over and crouched down beside her. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly. "You did really well today. You were very brave." The girl looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is Mommy going to jail?" Mark hesitated. "We're still figuring that out," he said gently. "But you're safe now, and that's what matters." Before he could say more, the door burst open and a woman ran inside, her eyes red and frantic. "Aisha!" she screamed. The little girl's head snapped up. "Mommy!" She dropped her rabbit and ran straight into the woman's arms. The mother collapsed to her knees, hugging her daughter so tightly it was as if she'd never let go again. Tears streamed down both their faces. Mark watched silently, his throat tightening. The real mother, The one who had been searching for her daughter for 2 days after she'd gone missing, held her child like the world had been given back to her. Rex wagged his tail softly, stepping closer. The woman looked up through her tears and smiled at him. "Is this the dog who found her?" Mark nodded. "Rex didn't just find her," he said quietly. "He saved her life." The woman reached out, resting a trembling hand on Rex's head. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're our angel." Rex leaned into her touch, eyes gentle, tail flicking once, as if he understood every word. For the first time in hours, Mark felt the weight lift off his shoulders. He looked at Rex and smiled. "Guess you've earned another steak dinner, partner." Rex gave a small bark in response. Not loud, not fearsome, just proud, the kind of bark that said, "Mission accomplished." The night sky over the airport was still glowing faintly when the first rays of dawn began to break. The chaos of the last few hours had faded into silence, replaced by the distant hum of departing planes. For most people, it was just another morning. But for Officer Mark Jensen and his loyal K-9 partner, Rex, it felt like the end of a lifetime. Mark stood outside near the runway fence, his jacket draped loosely over his shoulders. Beside him sat Rex, calm and steady, watching the planes rise one by one into the golden light. The wind ruffled his fur, carrying with it the faint scent of jet fuel and freedom. "You know," Mark said quietly, looking down at his partner, "I've worked this job for 10 years. I've seen criminals lie, people panic, machines fail." He paused, his voice softening. "But you never doubt. You never hesitate. You just know." Rex turned his head, eyes focused on his handler, as if he understood every word. Mark smiled faintly. "You saved that little girl, Rex. And you stopped something the rest of us couldn't even see coming." He knelt down, resting a hand on the dog's back. "You're more than a police dog, buddy. You're a guardian." Behind them, the terminal doors opened. The little dark-haired girl and her mother stepped out hand in hand. The girl spotted Rex instantly and ran toward him, her laughter echoing through the morning air. "Rex!" she called, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "Mommy says, you're a hero." Rex stayed still, lowering his head slightly, his tail wagging slowly and gentle, patient, kind. The woman smiled at Mark, eyes full of gratitude. "We'll never forget what you both did." Mark nodded, his throat tightening. "Just doing our job, ma'am." As they walked away, the girl turned one last time and waved. "Bye, Rex," she called. The German shepherd gave a single bark in return, one that made Mark's chest ache with pride. He looked back toward the rising sun, his voice low. "You know, Rex, people spend their whole lives trying to be heroes, but sometimes the real heroes don't wear uniforms. They don't speak our language." He paused, glancing down at his partner. "They just follow their hearts and save ours along the way." Rex leaned closer, resting his head gently against Mark's leg. The officer smiled, the weight of the night finally lifting. Somewhere inside the terminal, an announcement echoed. "All flights are clear for departure." But for Mark and Rex, the mission was already complete. They turned toward the sunrise together. One man, one dog, walking side by side into the new day. Because sometimes the loudest bark in the world is the one that saves a life.